Welcome back to Intrendias. In order to perform stock or crypto market analysis, derive technical analysis, or create a trading strategy, you first need access to readily available data. So let's look at a few ways to collect data from Yahoo Finance for stocks and cryptos, open, close, high, low, and volume data. So first, to start off in Python, we're going to import the libraries that we're going to be using in this video today. This is going to include pandas, datetime, and time itself. So for datetime, I'm going to actually bring in some specific ones here. From datetime, import time delta, date, time, and date. So we're going to be using those three right there. The first method is to use a custom function. This is going to involve getting the stock or crypto data directly from Yahoo Finance. So we're going to create three arguments here, which is a ticker, start date, and end date. So just for an alias, SD standing for start date, and then ED for end date. If we go into Apple stock as an example, here we're at financeyahoo.com quote Apple. We can see that there's historic data on Yahoo Finance for this stock, and it goes back to, I believe, whenever Apple IPO'd. So I'm going to click on this download button here. This download button is going to actually give you a CSV file, but I'm more interested in getting the link itself here. I'm going to pull up a TXT file so that we could digest what this link looks like. So what we see here is that there are some dynamic sections of the link that can be altered and changed to our desired ticker start and end date. First off, you see Apple, the ticker here, and what we want is to have a variable that the user inputs. So perhaps instead of Apple, I would want to look at Bank of America. So if I were to take this same link and all I did was change the ticker to Bank of America, now I'm going to get a CSV file that gives me Bank of America stuff, right? So I could do the same thing. Instead of Bank of America, let's say I want to look at Fulton. Fulton Financial, boom, there's Fulton.csv. So this link gives you access to a CSV file that houses data on the stock that we're searching for. So if I click open, it might take a second so that we could actually see what we're dealing with. And here we go. So we have a date, we have open, high, low, close, adjusted close, and then volume traded that day. So this is the type of data that we want. However, we don't want it in the CSV. We want it in Python. We want it to be direct. We want it to be in a DataFrame. So this is what we're going to achieve today. So now that we know what the link does and where the data is coming from, we can start by formatting our date that the user inputs. So we're going to start off by converting the start date and end date into a string type format, and we could achieve this through this notation where we want year, month, then day. Then we want to essentially take the start date and end date, which is going to be an example, say 2024-02 February 12th, right? So that's what the user is going to input. So that's an example of start date and end date. We can go back to this link here. We could notice period 1 and period 2, that acts like your start date and end date. but this doesn't look like a date at all, right? So what this is actually a Unix datetime format. So obviously we can't just go in here and type in 2024-02-12, right? It's not going to understand what we're trying to say. However, we can convert this 2024-02-12 year, month, day format into a Unix datetime format so that the Yahoo API can understand what we're trying to ask for. So let's go back into our Python. And I'm going to call it period 1, just like we saw in the link. And I'm going to type in the formula that we would need in order to convert our year, month, day into a Unix timestamp. So I'm going to say integer time market time, and then time dot string time, and we'll enter our start date and format date, our format being the year, month, day. So I'm going to repeat this again for period 2. So in period 2, instead of start date, we'll use our end date, and then we have period 2. So what does this mess of code actually mean? So let's break it down. We have time dot string time, which essentially is a function from the time module, is used for parsing a string representing a time according to a specified format. In this case, it's converting the start date, which is SD date, from its string representation from here to a structured time object using the specified format date. So a string input will become this type of date format, and this is achieved with this piece of code right here. Now we have time make time. This function, also from the time module, takes a structured time object and returns the corresponding Unix timestamp. A Unix timestamp represents the number of seconds that have passed since January 1st, 1970. So this converts what we already have into the Unix timestamp, which is what's being desired. Finally, we have the integer wrapping around the entire line of code, which converts to an integer using the int function. This step is necessary because the Unix timestamp is typically a floating point number, but to grab Yahoo Finance data, we would need the float number to become an integer. As you recall, this number right here is a perfect integer. There's no decimal or floating point. So we need to ensure that what we pass into Yahoo Finance is indeed a integer value. So in summary, this line of code right here converts the start date and end date from a human readable string format to a Unix timestamp, making it suitable for an API request and other operations. So now that we have that out of the way, we could move on to the ticker and query string. So we need to ensure that we pass a valid ticker, because if we don't, then we're going to get an error. So for example, we can have brk.b. However, with URLs, the dot is significant and can cause us some headaches. So usually the ticker, if it does have a dot in it, it is replaced by a dash. So instead of saying brk.b, you would say brk-b. So if a user were to enter brk.b, we would need to ensure that the algorithm, the Python code here, is able to capture those mistakes and fix them. So we're going to type in ticker is equal to ticker dot replace, and then we can replace a dot with the appropriate dash. That way we don't run into user errors. Finally, we can type in the query string, and I'm going to use the query string that I have here. If you need this type of URL, you could always just go to an example stock here. In this case, it's Apple, and you could toggle to the download button and then click copy link. And then that way you could just come in here and we can copy paste it right there. However, we want this URL to be dynamic based on what we input up here. So in order for this to be dynamic, we would use the very helpful F string here. And instead of Apple, we're going to type in ticker. And for period 1, we will type in period 1, squiggly bracket, and same thing for period 2. And we can keep interval and include adjusted close as true. Yahoo Finance allows you to query 1 week interval, 1 month interval. There's also hour interval, 5 minutes interval. So you can also add an interval argument here and then allow the user to either be more granular with the data or pull farther out. So for now in this demo, we'll just keep it as 1 day. Okay, so now that we have the query string, we're going to create a data frame. We're going to call it daily since this is in the 1 day interval. And then pandas.read CSV, because remember this query string is a CSV URL, and we're going to type in query string. Next, we will say daily is equal to the data frame dot set index. We're going to set the index as the date time. So I'm going to say panda date time index. I'm going to say daily date and then dot to list. That way, instead of having a date column, it would probably just make more sense to have the date be the interval or the index. Okay, so we have that. Since this is a custom function, we need to return something back, and I want to have the pandas data frame returned to me. So as an example, I can say ticker is equal to brk b, and then I could say data frame is equal to get data ticker, and then I can say I want 2020, beginning of 2020 data to today, and today is 2024-02-12. And then I could print data frame, and it's going to give me an error. That's unfortunate. Name format date is not defined. That's because I misspelled format. So let's try that again. And there you go. So now we have the beginning of 2020, and then we have the very end, 2024. What if we tried a different day? So here's an issue, right? Because I typed in 2024, February 12th, right? 12th being a Monday. And we see that the values returned were missing a day. I would think that, hey, if I typed in 2024, February 12th, and I'm only getting back what was the value at last Friday, I'm a day behind. So I believe this is because of Python indexing. I would love to hear in the comments down below what the definitive culprit is. However, I'm not getting the 100% of the data here, even though I requested the 12th day. I'm getting Friday the 9th. Even if I did 09, this is going to turn into 02, 08. If I press enter, boom, last day is 08. But that's not true. I requested the 09. So in order to patch this and get around it, we're going to use date time to add 1 day to the requested date so that we capture the entire data set that we want. So in order to do this, I'm going to add some code after the format date, and we're going to add 1 day to end date so that the request is complete. So end date is equal to datetime dot string time, end date, and then format date. So the format date converts the string date into a data type date. Next, we're going to say end date is equal to ed date plus time delta days 1. Here, I'm essentially saying add 1 day to date type ed date. That way, if I were to request 2024 02 09, it's actually going to give me the last day as 09 instead of 08 like we saw earlier. So this will actually give me 09 instead of 08, right? So that way the request is actually complete. We want to reverse back the ed date to a string type because, again, we're converting it into a date type down here. So just to keep consistency, I will do ed date dot string f time, and then we can use format date. So this converts back to string type date so that when we go into this step, it won't run into any errors. So now we're going to see 2024 02 09. I'm going to keep that instead of 08. Now we're going to actually see the desired 09 as the end date. So I'm going to click enter, and then boom. So 2024 February 9th, that's exactly what we asked for right here. Without that additional add-on that we just did, it would only return all the way up to here, and we're going to be behind an entire day, which is really crucial in trading. So this piece right here is definitely super, super important. So you might also be thinking, well, I really don't want to code all this. This is a pretty decent sized function. I rather have a really faster way to download Yahoo Finance data. So with open source being something that's awesome, we have a Yahoo Finance Python library called yfinance. So here, Yahoo Finance, just for the disclaimer, Yahoo Finance is not affiliated to actual yahoo.com, so yfinance is not created by Yahoo Inc., but rather it's a open source tool that uses Yahoo's publicly available APIs for research and education. So just a disclaimer, this is not actually built by Yahoo themselves, but open source allows us to create and leverage Yahoo's actual APIs. So this is a Python package that you could download, import yfinance as yf, and then you could say DataFrame is equal to yf.download. I'm going to say BRKB, Berkshire Hathaway, And then I'm going to enter the exact same values as the start and end date. And then I'm going to print the data frame. And then there you go. Again, we're facing that similar issue where we requested 2024-0209 as the end date. However, we see 2024-0208. So again, we can create a custom function surrounding this, and you can add this piece of code right here in order to bypass that issue, and then you won't be 1 day away or behind. So essentially, in the custom function route, the first example that we did, we basically created our very own download function. So we built our own custom function here that not only gathers data from the CSV query string from Yahoo Finance's API, but we also bypass the issue that we're facing where even though I requested February 9th, I'm getting February 8th as the last day, right? So you could create a custom function surrounding this to fix it, or you could build it from scratch and use the get data custom function that we built here. So I hope this video was helpful, especially for newcomers into algorithmic trading. Yahoo Finance is a really great tool. It offers a lot of public APIs to gather stock market data like close and volume, and it's pretty reliable. So I personally use it for my algorithmic trading and analysis that I do in my spare time. So I hope this video was helpful. If you enjoyed, please share the video, like, and subscribe, and I would love to hear your comments down below about what you think on the custom function and yfinance library. If you use anything else, please let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys use. I'd love to learn about new Python libraries and stretch my brain. So love to hear what you guys do down in the comments down below. Thank you again for watching. Thank you again for coding along with me. Happy coding, happy trading, and I will see you guys in the next one.